Hey, we're live just like that. Thank you so much for joining us here this week at Gear Report, the show where we talk about, typically we're going to talk about everything that's been published on Gear Report since the show last week, but we have a treat this week. We're continuing some of our focus, bringing in cool brands to talk about the scope of their brand, their products, some of the neat benefits that their
Hey
products
Jeff, can
bring to
you
the
guys hear
table.
me at all?
Clearly, we're having a little bit of a tech issue with
Okay,
Marcus.
good. It's
This
breaking
is
up a
how
little
we
bit on my
introduce.
side, but
This is how we
you can hear me. I guess
introduce
that's good.
Marcus at Modern Spartan Systems. And if I can find his mic,
That's
I'm
okay.
gonna mute him. There we go. I'm muting the boss. Marcus is the one of the big cheeses there at Modern Spartan Systems, and I hate to mute him, but until he figures his connectivity out, we're gonna go ahead and leave him off.
Oh,
But what we're going to do, we're going to talk about Modern Spartan System, and have got a diverse range of products, some of them associated with firearms exclusively, some that branch out into other areas, which is kind of like the panel of guests we have here tonight. So I'm going to ask if we can start with Dirk and then Charlie and then Matthew and kind of go around the horn, a little intro of who you are, what you do, why you're here to talk about Modern Spartan Systems, and then we can dive into some of those product areas and see what questions we get from the audience. I will remind the audience this is a participatory program. We don't know you're there if you don't say something, so leave us a comment and give us a little interaction, and let us know what questions you have about any of the Modern Spartan System products or personal questions for the panelists. They're probably not going to answer them, but they're always entertaining when you ask them.
I'll
So,
answer
with
them.
that, Dirk, would you like to tell us about yourself?
I'll start brand developers and say a couple brands. Product known market for about 5.
That's a pretty good robot that you're doing there.
Yeah, I was about to say you can hear every other word.
It looks like she's in the woods, though.
It does.
Yeah. Can you?
He's like from a remote location.
Sorry, guys.
And that's how it works sometimes when we go live. Dirk, we could understand everything. We were talking and chatting in the green room before the show. As soon as we go live, his internet decides it's going to be obstinate. So let's move on to Charlie. Maybe Dirk can find someplace closer to the Wi-Fi, and we can have that conversation in a minute. So
hopefully mine works.
Yeah,
yours
is
is doing
good.
fine.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, I'm Charlie Melton. I'm a 26-year retired Navy SEAL, and I started a company on Charlie Mike Precision and G2 Precision. I teach long range shooting, AR, and carbine courses all over the U.S., and we also build custom guns out of Texas. But I started using Marcus's product quite a few years ago. Did a bunch of testing on it, and it's probably one of the best lubes I've ever used.
Nice. So, how do you feel about being referred to as the sketchy guy top center?
I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool.
Yeah. Aegis Rod. I'm assuming that's Rod from Aegis Gun Care. Ask, who the hell is the sketchy guy top center? That's where you are on our screen. So, and he just answered that. So,
hey, I can
everyone say hi to Charlie. We're happy to have you here. We'll come back and talk about that was a rather modest introduction. We'll come back and dig a little deeper into some of the really cool things that you've done that have pushed the products in a bit. Mr. Komar, what man? Matthew and I go back a few years. I know him as wearing a couple different hats. I'm dying to understand what his association with Modern Spartan System is.
All right. Can you hear me? Good.
We could use a little more volume, but I can hear you.
So, as you know, my background in the 80% and home-built firearms world, did a lot of stuff there. And I've been doing that and decided I wanted to get into doing coatings, right? I've been building and engraving and doing that kind of thing for a while. And
yeah, if we get just a little bit more volume, that'd be awesome.
All right, let me try and up it here because I'm yelling pretty good. Let me try and adjust. All right, how's that?
Ooh, much better. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
He's with us now.
I killed the auto adjust and put it up to 200%.
There you go.
There we go. So anyway, yeah, my background has largely been in the 80% and home building firearms community, and I decided I wanted to get into doing coatings. And the thing that was intimidating to me is having to deal with two-part mixes.
Sure.
I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to, consistently get the same coloration and not worry about same shade and things like that. And you can't do that. I can't do that. I can't mix repeatedly
Sure.
the same way. So I found out about the Duty Coat product and was pretty excited to try that out. And
I don't think many people know about that product. I think that's going to be kind of our big reveal at the end, because there are some really neat things about that, according to what Marcus has told me. And I'm really interested to hear what your experience has been when we get to that product. I think that's going to be a really neat discussion.
Right.
Yeah, we
Good.
have.
So
Actually, I've got several archery companies now that are testing the Duty Coat sight in a bow sight company as well as an optics company. So pretty excited for the results of that.
nice. And I could hear you that time. So Dirk, do you want to introduce yourself now?
Yeah, sorry. My name's Dirk Stark. I have a company called Stark Growth, and I met Marcus about 5 years ago and started using his products. And actually, he hired me on to help as brand manager and sales. So I'm partnerships with industrial companies, private labels, as well as working on trying to get distributors in Canada. And anything you've seen on social media in the last a year is for Modern Spartan is what I'm trying to do and get the brand up.
Good. So while you were breaking up slightly, but while we can understand what you're saying, do you want to talk about what are the different products we're going to talk about, or product categories, and then we can pick one to dive into?
Right. So Modern Spartan really has the main product is the accuracy oil, which many of you are aware of in the firearms side of things. And it's not just a straight gun oil. It an oil that's a carrier. The products in it actually adhere to the metal, reduce friction, reduce heat, increase accuracy, and increase velocity. So that's a pretty unique product in the firearms industry. We have the carbon destroyer as well. Also, other industries we have are in the fishing industry, real lubricant. The TVT is actually in the automotive industry. So anything that has a motor, gearboxes, the TVT is a perfect fit for. And then now we've coat, and Marcus also has a couple other things out there that I'm not going to bring into the mix yet, but always connecting with people and adding new things to the Modern Spartan family.
Yeah. Well, man, isn't that the truth? Over the years, we've had some pretty interesting discussions about a wide range of different products. Some of them kind of chemistry based, some of them not even at all. So yeah, you never know where this discussion is going to take us. So y'all definitely want to stick around for that. Accuracy oil is pimp. I'm going to assume that's a good thing. Yeah. Copper and lead destroyers, amazing too. It sounds like we're diving into those different firearms products, the cleaning kit type products here first. And I'll tell you my experience several years ago. I'm embarrassed to even admit this, but several years ago, I got the Mosin-Nagant bug, and I went from none to 28 in the course of about 3 months. I bought like every one I could find. I thought the history on each of them was really cool, and I went through and cleaned them with a different product, like one of it's called Hoppies, whatever they call it. I don't even know the main one that my grandfather had when I was a kid, the cleaning stuff. And I cleaned them all, and I thought they were good. And then Marcus sent me one of these kits, and I went through and started cleaning. And I spent the next like hour and a half still pulling crap out of the same barrel that was already clean, as far as I knew. That was my first experience with it, and I was just on the cleaning side, and before even getting into the accuracy oil. So I've had a positive experience with it. Obviously we don't bring brands on here if we don't like them and haven't had a good experience with them. So that's my experience. I guess Charlie's probably had the most extreme experience, right? Because I know when we met the first time was a few years at the Antares event where you were showing the gun that you were about to use. I think you were nearing like the end of the break-in process for that gun to do the world record shot. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I've done that, and I've taken it and used it on like obviously precision barrels a little more well honed, but like on regular barrels that aren't precision, I've put it in there and it's actually tightened up the groups at 100 yards, like when you first shoot them. So yeah, it's a great product. Like I was impressed, obviously.
Yeah. The key is that reduction of friction, heat, the tightening of the grooves. Like a 22 long rifle, we were increase of about 240 feet per second on a 22 long rifle.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that too. The increase of that, and then also the barrel life. I've maxed out some barrels. Yeah, you probably get another 15-20% more barrel life out of your gun if you use that product.
Yeah, we're right now is testing the product to use in. They do a lot of block artillery kind of things and tanks, and they're pretty excited about using it to maintain the barrel life and integrity of those old Eastern Bloc tanks, and increasing the velocity and trajectory of their shells.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, when you figure out how to extend the life of metal, I mean, it works in everything that's metal.
Yeah. So I think that correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, but the things that you're doing, pushing the limits for distance shooting, that's really, really hard on barrels, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the new rounds. I mean, I started pushing the limits. There's been people that's passed it since, but yeah, anytime you're shooting a high velocity bullet with a lot of powder behind it, obviously it creates more friction and wears metal a lot faster. And the Spartan lube definitely helps out with that. Increases your, like you said, your muzzle velocity, but also extends the life of your barrel. So
Nice.
yeah, great product for that. But yeah.
Have you ever subsonic rounds, Charlie?
What's that?
Have you ever shot any subsonic rounds?
Yeah, I do a lot of subsonic stuff. Like we have our own suppressors now. Yeah, I play around anything in the gun industry. I work with. So.
Right. Have you noticed an interesting effect with the subsonics on the modern Spartan?
I haven't like done the sound meter with them or used it, but yeah, it probably would help with that. I haven't even thought about testing that, but yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Your velocity decreases in the subsonic and the sound goes down quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm actually doing some testing on suppressors here shortly, so I'll have to check it out, try it with them without.
Interesting.
And Pancho made a comment here. I'm just going to jump in. I'm sorry. Is that modern Spartan is a cool product that's been around, but it's really been under the ground. Marcus has not really done a lot. He's not a very loud guy when it comes to marketing and branding. So it's really not been available a lot of places except online through modernspartansystems.com. And so that kind of answers that for now. And we're working on more things. But if any dealers are out there that are interested, have them contact us or whatever. But for right now, modernspartansystems.com as well as on Amazon.
Yeah, he's kind of like me. We're both tech tards. So we're just getting into the whole social media and figuring all that out. But yeah, it makes a big difference. Yeah, I'm working on a lot of that stuff now too.
So to what Dirk said, if you go to modernspartansystems.com is the website, and you'll see categories for firearms, automotive, fishing, knives and blades. So there are a number of different kind of product areas there, and you can purchase products directly. I'll try to add some links to where you can get them on Amazon in the chat later. But if you want some more information on the products, this is a good place to get it as well. You can go to the website and check that out. So that was a nice segue so that we could show the website. Thank you, Honcho Fett. All right, and let's see. Ghost has joined us, saying hi to everyone. We appreciate everyone out there leaving comments, letting us know they're there. So, any more questions from anyone on the firearms side? Anything we want to talk about? We talked about the accuracy oil, carbon destroyer, copper and lead destroyer. I didn't hear too much about the accuracy grease. That's one that I really liked. Especially when I was working with those older guns.
Yeah, you talking about the bolt grease stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I use that a lot, especially on the bolt guns or when I'm lapping the lugs on the bolt. I put that on there and it works awesome.
Yeah, we use a lot on tractors and implement three points and stuff like that as well. Gearboxes works really good on that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
So I'm not sure how to.
All right, so Clover Tech, the Tactical Leprechaun, has joined us, and he said he had some comments or questions. We had to let him in, so I left him stew in the green room a little too long. I apologize for that.
Probably.
He's here now, so
I ate all the cookies. There's no more cookies back there, just so everybody knows. They're gone.
That's bull crap.
No, I was pretty amazed with the copper lead destroyer. The accuracy stuff, it definitely works. I don't shoot anything super long range, but even then, even at a few hundred yards, you notice the difference. But the copper and lead destroyer for me was insane because I could clean with anything else, and you're running the patches through, and you're like, oh, okay, it's good, right? And then you run that stuff through it, and you're like, oh crap! And there's it's not like it's just a little dirty. There's little chunks of crap that'll come out after you run that stuff through. It's amazing.
That was my experience too. And I got to be honest, you should be happy when that happens, right? But invariably, it's like the first time, it's like, oh, wow. And then you get pissed off at what you were using. And then, like a half hour later, when it's still pulling funk out, it's like, all right, now seriously, how bad could this thing be?
Yeah. What's the cool thing about it is once you get that out, it cleans a lot easier once you, basically cure your barrel with the accuracy oil.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So does anyone want to talk about the procedure for that? Because I don't think we talked about that. You don't just put it in and you're done, right?
Are you talking about procedures for cleaning a gun, or
the procedure for I think Dirk called it curing
or breaking
barrel. Or breaking a barrel? Yeah, that's kind of like an opinion. Everybody has their own thing. There's 100 different ways to break in a barrel or do whatever.
Specifically for the accuracy oil, there are directions on the bottle for how to shoot 3 to 5 rounds and apply again, and you do a couple cycles of that.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now I'm logged in. My son gave me his computer, so I'm in here.
Excellent. All right, and you can hear us now, so that's fantastic.
I can hear you guys too. Yep. So I can answer questions.
Yeah, well, we got started without you, so we've just about covered the firearms products, and we're just talking about the. Do you want to talk about the process for the initial application for the accuracy oil and what's happening as you apply it, shoot a few rounds, apply it, shoot a few rounds. What's happening during that process within the barrel?
It helps Charlie to make 5,250 yard shots or some crazy number.
Well, I can tell you my process of gun cleaning, and again, everybody has their own process. But I go through my cleaning process using the Spartan accuracy.
Yeah. Sure. So what I tell people is you want to clean everything down. Use the carbon destroyer, copper lead destroyer, and get everything out of it so you get kind of bare, nice, clean metal. And then you want to put the accuracy on everything metal, everything from the trigger system to the tip of the gun. And the molecules on the metal and the oil are going to bond onto the metal. So the oil and the grease are the carriers. The magic molecules that are in them, they'll bond down like little super magnets, and they leave the surface low stick and about 90% less friction, and they're very stable molecules. So you just clean, apply everything all over the place, kind of like a medium coat, the initial application. and then you do you can put grease on the kind of key spots you might normally put grease, so just a little bit in those two, and then you do a one-time conditioning on the barrel. And what that is you're going to shoot 3 rounds, reapply accuracy oil, shoot 3 more times, and reapply. Do that a total of like 5 applications, and that'll fully saturate the molecules like 100% into the barrel. And so now you're good. And you should see, if you're looking at chronographs and stuff, your shot group should tighten up, and you should see increased velocity, maybe just a little bit, maybe a lot, just depends. And your chronograph numbers will get better. So it's pretty easy to do. And then you just clean and lube with their products. When you lose some molecules after you clean it, you just reapply.
Right. Marcus, I think the thing that's important to say is that this is not a lot of CLPs and things like that are just basically filling the pores or cleaning the pores out, and that's it. Where this product actually chemically bonds at the ionic level with the ionic charge. So it's being held in there by a chemical bond instead of just filling the pores or things like that. So that's how our product is significantly different than anything else out there.
The professor has said it well.
So I've got a specific application. I haven't tried it yet, but I really have been thinking about doing it. I just hadn't had the time. So my first question is going to be the process with the accuracy stuff. Same for rimfire. Is there anything different with that?
No.
Okay. So here's my scenario. I've got a Walther PPQ-22. I've gotten 2 from them. One of them has went back twice. And after, I don't know, I would say a couple of 100 rounds, it leads in toward the end of the barrel. I'd say the last third, to the point that it keyholes. I mean, it's that bad. It affects it that much. Is it possible cleaning that thing down with the copper lead destroyer and the accuracy stuff might help with that situation, whatever's going on? Because I can't nail it down. I can shoot some really high grade match ammo in it. We're talking about $25 a box Ely, and it doesn't do it. But it literally does it with 40 or 50 other kinds of ammunition. And Walther can't find a thing wrong with it.
Well, I can chime in on that. Like a lot of times when
Please.
barrels are made, when they're button pulled, a lot of times the metal, you'll get some bad metal. So it sounds to me like your barrel, when they were button pulling that barrel, it had some impurities in that section of the barrel, and that's why you're having that problem.
Would that be something they would overlook?
Yes, they totally would overlook it. They have no clue until you shoot it and figure out what it does. But if it's doing that consistently, that's exactly what happened. You just
Absolutely doing it.
You just got some impure metal that your barrel was pulled out of.
Okay,
But
so
the
that
Spartan
process.
You could try the Spartan oil. Like you clean it really good and get that Spartan oil to soak in there, and that might help it a little bit. But yeah, that's probably just a bad barrel, to be honest.
Okay. Well, that's the best answer I've ever gotten, including from Walther. So,
and I've seen a lot of that. There's always impurities in metal, especially with stuff they're doing nowadays. Like where you
well,
get
I haven't.
How they're made.
I haven't talked to a single other person with one of those PPQ-22s that experienced the same issue.
No, I have one. I have no issues with it. Walter's a good guy.
And like I said, that's the second. This is the second one that they've sent me, and it's been back to them twice.
Oh, that's the second barrel you've done?
Yeah, the second handgun completely. So it's done on 2 separate handguns. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably the impurities in the metal and the way they're pulling them and doing the barrels.
They just sent you the same one back.
Yeah, they probably just sent it the same one back. You're probably
They
right.
cleaned it and said,
things going nowadays, they probably just remelt it.
Well, I got this one pre-COVID, so I mean, I've had it a while, and I just kind of put it to the side and quit messing with it because I never could figure out what was going on, and I don't want to put anything out without knowing what's going on and telling somebody how they can correct it.
Yeah. So I say sometimes I've heard from a lot of different people that they've had certain issues on their guns. Maybe it's similar type things you're talking about. And sometimes the accuracy oil will smooth it out enough. So it could help.
Yeah, it sounds like it's worth trying. Yeah.
Because you're talking a big reduction in friction. And so it could smooth it out.
At least with some ammunition, maybe at least it would smooth it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the ammunition really has nothing to do with it.
Well, I don't have that problem. Like I said, with high grade match ammo, it
Yeah.
doesn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, ammunition is different, but yeah, if you got bad metal in your barrel, this is a bad barrel. And it happens every now and then, even with precision grade barrels and everything. Sometimes you just get some bad metal, or it's pulled wrong or cured wrong. Yeah, you just get a bad barrel.
Interesting.
So, did you guys have it? I mean, I missed a chunk. Did you guys have any other questions about the products?
I think we're making pretty good progress there. We hadn't mentioned the crystal clear for optics. I think that's the only one on the firearm side that we hadn't talked about yet. If anyone wanted to say anything about that before we move on.
Yeah, you gotta see what you're shooting. It's a really good cleaner. It won't streak. It doesn't have any of the chemicals and the things in there that would harm, certain components of the optics. And so you can use it on just about anything. It's good for even things like smartphones and eyeglasses and sunglasses. But on your optics, it's a little anti-static, a little anti-fog. It's kind of one of our lesser products, but a lot of people really, really like it. And you can even clean the outside of your gun with it too. A lot of people like doing that too.
Yeah, I've accidentally got the Spartan 2 on some of my optics, like the coated glass and stuff, and like, yeah, it doesn't mess it up at all. And then, yeah, I've used a glass cleaner. It works pretty good.
Oh, we got Robot Dirk again.
Oh, sorry, guys. One of the things you mentioned, carbon destroyer.
You said he wants to talk about the carbon destroyer.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, something like that.
I can give people the carbon destroyer is a phenomenal product that was actually designed to clean the gun ports and the engines of fighter jets, but they wanted to replace the high VOC solvents they were using. So our guys came up with this formula. So it's got a fantastic background, and it'll clean anything, even Cosmoline. So it's one that almost everybody that uses it says it's the best cleaner for carbon that they've ever used. And so it's just something you get to play with. If you let it sit for 1 to 3 minutes, let it activate and scrub it, it'll move stuff, even below the metals, like the embedded stuff. So it's an excellent product.
Okay. Okay, so I think that probably wraps up the firearms products, right? Did I miss anything? Is everything kind of represented in the kit here?
I'll say the only other thing we got nothing left, which is a final rinse product. A lot of guys like using that too, especially a lot of gunsmiths. That leaves like zero residue when you clean things. That people like, and the machine. Well, as you get into machine cutting oil for gunsmiths, like all the regular products plus the gunsmiths like the machine cutting oil because it'll extend the tool life like 2 to 30 times longer and leave a much better finish on the cuts. So there's that. And we got the
I didn't talk about the suppressor shield.
Yeah, it's just you basically use the products in that kit, and you are putting the low stick performance on the suppressor, so you can basically shoot them and clean them very easily, and it's going to last, make the thing last indefinitely. So you can shoot a lot, clean it. It's got a low stick surface, so clean up real easy. Even a single piece ones, it can work on there. It's better if you can take them apart, but you're just going to follow the process with those products and make the suppressors and compensators clean up super easy and last, indefinitely.
Awesome. Okay, so let me go back and see if we have any questions, comments out there. Looks like we're caught up on those. So where would you like to go now? That kind of wraps up the firearms products. The other thing that I have here is the blade oil for knives. Is that something you want to talk about real quick while we're changing topics?
Yeah, sure. It does the same thing. It puts it makes the knives super slick if it's a folding knife or something like that, and it helps the edges stay sharper longer. And it becomes like a no stick, so like things can't stick to it. It goes on a little wet, but then it'll kind of cure into the metal, and you're good. So a lot of people really like that formula for any kind of cutting tools or hatchets or knives, anything like that.
Yeah, I could chime in on that. Yeah, I'm a big knife and hat or tomahawk guy too. So yeah, I use that stuff every time I'm sharpening all my knives and tomahawks, and it makes it hold the edge a little longer. I skin a lot of pigs too, which destroys every blade. So it works good for that.
So not just like wiping down a blade, but you're using it with like a whetstone or a sharpening system.
Yep, I use it on my whetstone when I sharpen my tomahawks and knives.
Nice.
Yeah, it works really nice. And then when I store my knives, same with the guns, I always store them wet with that lube on there. And then obviously I wipe them up before I use them or drop patch the bore before I shoot it. Yeah, when I'm storing my guns for a long time, I always leave it wet with the Spartan lube in there. And it works really well for like extending the barrel life.
Nice. Okay. Good to know. All right. So, Marcus, which direction would you like to go now?
I would like Matt to explain about our coatings, because the gun chemistry is phenomenal. People don't know about it. When they learn about it, they love it, of course. But I've been working with specialty coatings for a long time, and I ended up partnering with my friend Chris, and he was the one that developed all the Cerakote coatings, right? And basically that it became available to him to bring the next generation of coatings, and he wanted to partner with me. So we've got basically, Cerakote coatings on steroids. And Matt is partnered with me on that. And there's some huge benefits to it. I think it's going to be the next biggest coating in the gun industry. And we got other very unique specialty coatings for other areas too. But I want Matt to kind of explain, from his perspective, what the products are and how they work, and the benefits to the users and the benefits to the applicators.
And while he's talking about that, I don't see it on the regular Modern Spartan System site. Is there someplace I should be looking to? Well, while Matthew's talking, I was going to kind of bring the screen up in the background.
Duty coat.
Gear-Report.com.
All right. I'll look for that while you start, Matthew.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, I decided I wanted to get into the gun coatings, and I didn't dig on the idea of mixing the catalyst and the hardener and the pigment and all that. I wanted to be able to make sure that I had consistent colors and whatnot. So that was kind of the first thing that caught my attention about the duty coat, is that it is just a one part. You pour it in your HLVP gun and you spray it, and there you go. And it's air cure, which was definitely also attractive to me, to not have to worry about baking. The data seems to indicate that it is the strongest of the coatings out there, both abrasion resistance and heat resistance and whatnot. But realistically, though, the big draw to me was the ease of application, and I've kind of experienced that. I've had great luck with it, and I've had really good results.
Yeah, so I've considered doing some mainly firearms coatings, and it kind of relates back to how you and I met, Matthew, and that was talking about 80% firearms and the Ghost Gunner system. And as Alan at Quarter Horse Arms and I were working through some of those, we were really left with a challenge of, okay, now we got these bare metal lowers. We don't have an oven to bake them. We don't necessarily have the skill or any other specialized equipment. How do we go about that? And what I'm hearing you say is, without having the two parts that you have to mix, without having an oven you have to bake it, and then not any kind of special spraying equipment. Is that all correct? That it sounds to me like we've lowered the bar So you don't have to have, a special operation to do this like Cerakote. Like, would you say that your average person
Yeah,
should be full this
absolutely.
off?
Absolutely. We've lowered the bar for entry without lowering the standard, right? We've, in my opinion, raised the standard with regard to the quality of product put out while lowering the bar. The very first thing that I did was done using a $20 HVLP gun and the air compressor that I had in my home garage. A little 2.5 gallon tank, I think. Just a real small homeowner one, no big deal. And I had great results. Subsequent to that, I then wound up setting up a much better place to do the work and have I don't know, I think it's an 80-gallon tank. It's pretty massive air compressor. And I'm still using cheap HVLP guns. I've there's people doing the $300 Iowatas, but the results that I'm getting with a $20-$30 Amazon gun are great. So I haven't messed with doing anything more. And you can use an oven, you can bake it, but realistically, the dry to touch times and the the time between spraying and having something usable is so low just with the air cure time that I'm just letting it cure in ambient air rather than worrying about dealing with the ovens, and it's been great.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
so that is interesting. So when I'm looking at the different products on the website, I see a Monster Tough True Grip, Super Prime, Wet Grip. Do you want to who wants to talk about
Sure.
what's different about those?
So starting at the very beginning, Monster Tough is kind of the product, right? It's when I'm talking about duty coat, I'm talking about Monster Tough. That is the coloring agent, that is the coating, that is the base product. The next one to talk about, I guess, would be the Super Prime. How I have done almost all of my coating with it is I've taken my 80s, I've milled them out, I've put them in a bead blaster, I've blasted them, to roughen up the substrate, and then I've sprayed it with the duty coat and have had great results, and cool, that's great. What the primer is for is if you are not in a position to be able to bead blast it. So maybe
Okay.
it's something that you don't want to bead blast for some reason, for whatever reason. Or maybe it's something that you've already put one layer of the duty coat on. All right, so you've sprayed your base black or gray or whatever your base color is, and you want to maybe do some stencils and do some camo patterns and things like that. Then what you would do is use the Super Prime. The Super Prime, there's different ways you can apply it. The way that I've been doing it is just taking a lint-free rag, some kind of microfiber, and just wipe it on. You wipe it on so it kind of looks a hair glossy. As long as it looks glossy, you're good to go. My understanding is once it loses the gloss, you've got about 15 minutes, which is actually a tremendous amount of time when it comes to spraying the firearm or whatever you're spraying. 15 minutes is actually much longer than it sounds like. I've never had to reapply. I'll say that. And so, I take my 80, I mill it out, I engrave it, I bead blast it, I coat it. Within an hour, it is dry to the touch and it's ready for the next layer. I then throw a stencil on. I get my microfiber cloth. I wipe the primer on and I spray it again. 30 minutes to an hour later, it's again dry to touch. So I throw more stencils on, wipe it down with the primer, spray it again, go about my business. And I've also used the primer when I was doing some polymer stocks and frames that I wasn't comfortable bead blasting. And I just wiped the primer on, sprayed it, and it was good to go. Another benefit of being able to do the primer as opposed to with some of the other products where you'll spray it in a flash shirt or something like that, is what I've been able to do is take a number of uppers, lowers, handguards, whatever, and spray them all with one color, right? I'll spray them all black. I'll spray a bunch, a green, a coyote, something like that. And then at that point, they're either ready to go if somebody wants a black, a coyote, a green, or something like that, or if then later on I decide I want to go ahead and turn that into a camo pattern, throw some stencils on, do something like that, then I don't need to worry about going back to the the magic eraser or the bead blaster. I just throw the stencils on that as it sits, wipe it down with the primer, and then go to town with the stencils. And then I can add the primer, do whatever I need to do.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
And then, okay, so that leaves us with true grip and wet grip, right?
Okay, so True Grip and Wet Grip are basically they're two very similar products. Um, so Wet Grip has a chemical component that gives you a better grip when it becomes wet. You know, whether you're doing the do and you've got hands become muddy, bloody, sweaty, wet, whatever the case may be, the typical kinds of things that would result in losing traction, it actually increases traction. How it was described to me at one point was similar to how your hands, when you spend 12 hours in the water or whatnot, they kind of give some additional texture. A similar concept to that. Not quite as pronounced, but the idea is you become muddy, bloody, sweaty, wet, and your grip is increased. And that's the wet grip component, and the true grip combines that plus a grit. It's a very fine grit, but basically some additional texture when it's not wet.
And are those like in something that you mix into the to that
Uh,
base
that would be applied as a top coat.
as a top coat? Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you could put it on. You could take a Sig, a Glock, a whatever HK off the shelf, and you could throw the primer on it, throw the true grip or wet grip on it, and go about your business. Or you could
Interesting.
do the same with something that had Monster Tough applied.
Okay.
So that'll go through the sprayer as well.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Same application.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of different possibilities there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the key thing is that the end result is going to be a much tougher, more durable coating that can take you just a big pounding. And it can also take huge amount of heat. When I say that, I mean, it can be torched. I mean, you could take it white hot, torch it, and dip it in cold water. It's still not going to come off. So you could use it on suppressors or anything that's going to get really hot. It'll be able to take it. So you're getting a superior end result.
Awesome.
Can I
Yeah, that's what I was
ask?
gonna. That's what I was gonna ask if it, as far as barrels and everything else, because I mean, I've got a Cerakote guy, but I mean, sometimes his turnaround time is ridiculous, and I'm like, man, I wish I could do this myself.
Dude, you should try it, man. I'm telling you, the first time I did it, I was impatient. I didn't have a paint booth set up, and this is terrible, and I shouldn't share the story, but here we are. Don't tell anybody.
That's
But
how we learn.
I did it in my garage without a respirator, and I had a large cardboard box, and I put it in there and sprayed it, and I shouldn't have done that. It's a much better experience with a respirator. Do that.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
important.
Right.
But the point being, you don't need much to do it. I used a cheap H3LP gun to spray it in a small compressor, and of course with better equipment, you're going to get a better result. But
Right.
what I got out of the first ones before I had the booth set up was it came out great. And to speak to its abrasion resistance, I wish I had some science and some numbers, to give some absolute metrics. I don't have that. What I do have is someone who switched over from another product using this was describing their process for doing battle worn look, and they would spray their black, then they would spray over another color, and then they were taking 800 grit sandpaper and wiping on the different points where it looked good to add some wear, and wearing away the top layer, exposing the black. Cool. They started doing with this and weren't getting anywhere, and so had to drop from 800 grit to 200 grit in order to get anywhere.
Wow.
Gravel on a stick.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I understand what 200 versus 800 means, right? I know that the 200 is way rougher. There you go. But I don't use sandpaper enough that those numbers meant a whole lot to me until after hearing that, and I wound up at the hardware store a couple of days later, and I went ahead and went down that aisle and was like, I'm curious, and so I touched 800, and 800 was relatively smooth, really. And then I touched the 200, and I was like, "Oh, that's a big deal."
Yeah.
Wow. Like you said, gravel on a stick, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's no joke.
Yeah, that's awesome though, because I've had I just had recently I've had a barrel done, and they attempted a war torn, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it. But I mean, it's it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I think they wiped it down because it was true Cerakote, so they wiped it down and did something, and it was like, all right, it's a barrel, it'll get covered up with a hand guard, it's good enough.
Yeah, I've heard a number of approaches there, but go on.
I was going to say, as far as the application, I work with the Sonoran Desert Institute. They get all their new students come in, and they get our accuracy oil and our carbon destroyer, and lots of them call me up and they're like, "Oh, we want to work with this." They love it, and since I get a good relationship with those guys, they learned about the coating. They decided that they would like to do a course with us, so we're going to be designing a course. It might take a little while to get all everything all set up, but they like it because it's going to be much easier for people to learn how to do and how to use, and you don't have ovens and the downtime, and that's just so quick. And so I think there's a learning, to be honest, there's going to be a learning curve for doing anything. And some people are more artistic or can get it quicker. Other people take a little longer, but you should be able to learn it. Maybe watch like YouTube videos and maybe try to find someone else that is good at it and learn from them. And then you should be able to do your own.
Yeah. Ideally, that would be awesome. Like I said, I ship stuff off all the time, and 2-3 weeks later, I'm like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" "Oh yeah, we'll get it in the oven tomorrow." I'm like, oh, you're killing me.
Did I miss the curing time on that?
It's dry to touch in 30 to 60 minutes, depending on air movement and temperature. And then you can handle it, do whatever you want. It takes 5 days. Any of the polystyrene formulas that they take, these nanoceramics take about 5 days to fully cure, but you can handle them all the way. You just don't want to shoot on it until then. But you can ship it, package it, move it, store it, whatever you want.
Sounds awesome.
Right.
So in my experience, when I've been doing the camo patterns and such, I kind of push the envelope to see what I can get away with a little bit, right? To you want to know what you're working with. In my experience, 20 to 30 minutes later, with gloved hands, I was touching it and handling it to apply the stencils and do it.
Okay, I don't know what just happened there, but let me bring. I don't think I did anything. It just
That was weird.
it was. So I apologize. Let's make sure we got everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's everyone who was here.
You're a mess.
All right.
I didn't even touch or click anything. Just boom, everyone was gone. I was like, wow.
I was all excited about talking about the coatings. I'm like, heck yeah, I can freaking coat crap. Screw those Cerakote guys.
I'm not sure where I got cut off, but what I was saying is with the when I was doing the camo patterns and I was trying to figure out what I could really get away with in the environment that I was in, and granted, temperature, humidity, all those things are going to be players, but in the environment I was in, what I got away with without any kind of apparent damage to the coating was I did my first coat. Within 30 minutes, I could do the next. Within 30 minutes, I could do the next. And I did 3 or 4 layers of that. And then later that day, a couple of hours later, I went ahead and started assembling. I was doing stripped lowers and uppers and assembled them and then had them hang out. And as was described to me with regard to the curing process, was that once it's dry to touch and once you can handle it, you can do pretty much anything. But if you start beating on it, it's not at full strength. So kind of the scenario that was described to me is, let's say I needed to ship something, right? Let's say I was doing some work for you. What I would do is I would go ahead and I would do it all up. A couple hours later, assemble everything. I could then throw it in a box and mail it to you. And then a few days later, then when you get it and pull it out of the box, then you're good to go.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the time thing with the. Ooh, I got an echo.
Whoa.
Who controls the echo?
That's one of the things that we don't really have any control over in this platform. Are you guys hearing it when I talk?
No.
No. I have echo cancellation on, so
Yeah, same. And that's something that's under the audio options, Clover, and echo cancellation.
that's why I use these now.
Mine is on. Yeah, I'm using my headset, so I'm totally isolated on my end.
Interesting.
Marcus, do you want to try muting yourself when you're not talking and see if that changes anything?
Sure, I can mute it.
Are we good now?
Test.
Yeah.
Blame
I've
Marcus.
learned-
Marcus's fault.
Well, I've learned like using the microphone and then using a speaker. Sometimes it's too close, and then it's
So what was I going to ask?
that.
Oh, with the 5 days on the curing, I think the convenience of not having the oven, right,
Oh
and
my
all that
gosh, yeah.
stuff. I mean, that's totally worth it. For years now, I've been looking for a school locker, something I could turn into an oven, right? And I haven't found anything, and so this is amazing. So two more questions. The first one I've got with the coating, is with the coverage. I got a couple questions with coverage. You were talking about the different coats. On average, I mean, how many coats are you going to have to do for it to be quote unquote right?
Matt, if you want to say that, but I can say you're.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I'm going to say that for all of the single color coatings, I've done a single coat, and it's been good to go. And then of course, if I'm doing stenciling, then I need multiple coats, because different colors.
Right.
But no,
as long as you've got good coverage with a single coat, you're good. In other words,
100%.
The equipment makes a difference, doesn't it?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Well, equipment will make a big difference with that in waste a lot too. You got to be really careful with that. So that brings me to my next question. With that is, as far as coverage, I see that you've got different sizes available there on the website. So, is there any kind of rough estimate about how much can be done with a certain size? If anybody was curious about that.
I don't know that data exists.
Like a lower AR lower, roughly 2 out of a 4 ounce, or
I've played with a number of largely what I've gotten is the 4 ounce containers, and I haven't run out of one yet. And I've done a lot of playing.
Okay, so it goes a long way, right?
Yeah,
it's like more than more than one AR lower out of a 4 ounce.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm not holding you to that because again, that's going to depend on your equipment and a lot of other things, how much waste you've got. So as far as color,
I would say with a 4 ounce container, a dozen would not surprise me.
Awesome. Oh wow, that's great!
Oh my goodness,
that is awesome.
like you're talking about just a lower or a dozen like full AR?
I'd say uppers and lowers is largely what I've been doing. And really, I take it back. I've been doing uppers, lowers, and handguards, largely 15 inches. And I'm getting. I've gotten several out of.
Well, at the cost versus paying somebody to Cerakote versus the headache versus, I mean, even if you only got 4 or 5, that would be well worth it. Well worth it.
Doesn't even compare.
Yeah. Dale, as far as any, I know with Duracoat and Cerakote and some of the things like that, there's color mixing options. Is that possible with these, or?
Well, yes, you could like on that picture there, you could take some of those colors and mix them, and that's cool. Um, you can. I personally would shy away from that because part of what I want to do is be able to replicate exactly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
how much blue did I use and how much gray did I use
Well, one
and
could measure that out and mix when they're mixing it, though, right?
you absolutely could. The issue I think you would run into is you're dealing with very, very small numbers. It's not like
Right.
you're mixing a gallon of this and 2 gallons of this, and if you're a few ounces off, who cares? It's close enough. When
This
you're
is true.
talking about
That makes
several
sense.
milliliters,
Yeah.
being off by half a milliliter changes things.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that's the drops we're talking about would make a
Yeah.
difference. So
Well,
that case, I wouldn't, but yeah, you absolutely could.
Well, it wouldn't be like for a gunsmith doing this on a regular basis to custom mix colors, probably not. But for a novice that picks up 2 or 3 bottles and kind of plays around with some medicine droppers and says, "Oh, okay, this is kind of the color I
Absolutely.
want." It's a
Absolutely.
one-off, right? So it really doesn't
Absolutely.
matter.
100%.
Replication doesn't matter.
100%. If somebody was like, "Hey, I want to try and match this color one time. I'm going to do what I do." Absolutely. And if I
Right.
wanted to do that, if I was like, "Hey, I'd like to match this," and Duty Coat doesn't offer it, but red and yellow make orange, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it. Then absolutely do it. Do
Right.
it, and you'll have great success. From
Right.
the perspective of being able to replicate, that's largely honestly what drove me to Duty Coat. Is not
Right.
wanting to mix, catalyst and hardener and
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
I didn't want
Yeah.
to do it. And once
Yeah.
you mix it, I'm also bad at estimating, right? I'm bad at mixing. I'm bad at estimating. So
Right. Yeah.
what I don't want to do is I don't want to mix not quite enough, and then
Yeah.
mid spray job have to mix a little bit more.
That makes sense.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
you would potentially have that waste again, right? Because you
yeah,
could
exactly.
mix too
So
much. Yeah,
exactly, if you mix too much, you have waste. If you mix not enough, it's
you're screwed.
worse because then
Yeah,
you're definitely
Yeah.
gonna have waste,
That's
and
absolutely.
you may have to redo the whole thing.
That's true. I was just
Yeah,
curious
yeah.
from a chemical standpoint, or anything like that, if there was any drawbacks to it.
Yeah, no, my understanding, and I'm not the chemist, right? But my understanding is you can take any quantity of any colors of Monster Tough, mix them up, and you'll get the color you get.
Okay.
It's like kids with their Play-Doh. Eventually it's all brown. The kids
Yeah.
they mix it all up,
Yeah,
right?
this is
So
true.
you can
Yeah.
do what you want, but it's still going to be Monster Tough.
Yeah, it should mix fine because you can go wet on wet too, like the swirl things like that. So they can blend together if you do them like that. They want to
Right.
play around. One thing I want to note though is that it's important that people tend to think thick more is better. On this one, you want to go less. Like as long as you can cover it up, and you're maybe talking like 1 mil, which a business card is like 10 mils thick, just to give you an idea.
Oh yeah.
So you want to go less, and that is where you want to be with it, which is also good because it's easier to do and you have less waste.
So on the site here, you've got a long list of colors. Is there some place where people can get an approximation of what each color is? Like a color chart? I mean, I know that on a computer screen, you run the risk of it depends on how your monitor's adjusted, what it's going to look like. But is there something to give you an idea what ballpark each color is?
Matt, I'll let you answer that because it's we're still brand new, and so the color chart part is a little bit of an issue, but there is a way to kind of match the colors.
Yeah, we're I guess I don't really have a good answer to that. We're trying to come up with a good way to do that, and the presentation of colors is difficult on a monitor.
Yeah, no doubt.
A lot of them have some metallic shine to them, some flakes and things that become apparent in them, and it is very, very difficult to capture that on a screen. You know,
Yeah.
Sure.
taking pictures of fully cured objects only gets you so far. But even that, you know, without actually holding it, that is a
Right.
challenge that's being looked into.
So with the colors, are there any change between wet, applied, and cured? Is that going to change drastically, or is it minimum? Would you say?
So when you say wet, do you mean wet
Like
as
in the
it's
bottle?
applied in the
Like,
bottle? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It's not going to be crazy off the wall different, right?
no. It's not going to be 100% exact. Like if you were
Sure.
to use, you know, equipment to measure it, right, to quantify a
Right.
color, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be very, very close.
Right.
Okay.
Very close.
Within that 90 percentile, really easily. That's what kind of what I'm hearing.
Right.
So it's not like paint where it goes on one color and then it dries a different color. You're like,
Right.
Like, what is this?
really horrible.
Yeah. No.
And y'all got options for like a matte or a flat. You said you had some flakes and some metallics and some different.
Right,
so
right,
if somebody wanted like a matte look, they could go that route too.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants their guns to look like Matt.
That's right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Take some stenciling, but we're all right.
Yeah.
In the coatings too, we also have some unique coatings for knives and bladed things, and also for the archery side of it. So people that
Nice.
like, I mean, the same coatings can be used in a Monster Tough, and the Wet Grip and True Grip can be used on you know, different things as well. But we've got one called Glide that is good on knives to help keep that knife blade much sharper, much longer. Really tough. Again, clear nano ceramic, and then stuff for the archery too that makes the just makes the kind of slickness and the cleanability, and so there's real advantages, not just for the guns but for other things as well. And we got some other very cool stuff that's going to be coming out pretty soon for boats, and I think for ATVs too.
That's the stuff we want to hear about. See,
I'm digging the coatings. I'm digging them.
Yeah,
Mine as
absolutely. So what I heard, Matthew, which the type of gun you were using, and what came to mind to me is like the type of gun that I'd use to paint my truck. But then they make in those type of guns, you can get, like, I use a full, what would it be, like
quart.
I think mine actually has a quart size
Yeah.
can under it, but you can get the ones that have like a little small can that sits on top of the gun instead of hanging under it, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're using?
100%. That's what I'm using.
Yeah. Okay.
With the small can on top.
So if I
Harbor
had,
Freight.
like I've got a little
I have
airbrush
one from Harbor Freight. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I've got a little airbrush kit that's got like a little thimble sized thing on top, and you know the little spray. Would that be sufficient for painting firearms, for example?
Maybe. A thimble seems tiny to me, but you don't use much, so I've not done that.
Worst case, you refill it. I guess if you're doing the same color.
I feel like you wouldn't be filling it twice. You know what I mean? Like you spray once, and maybe you're filling it a second time. You're not refilling it. You wouldn't be going back a third time.
It depends on if it's a lower or if it's a handguard or whatever.
Now, since we're talking about the equipment, have we talked about the cleanup, the cleaning process? Like if you wanted, once you get done, you put it up, or right. Harbor Freight. I mean, you probably could. Yeah,
throw it away when you're done. That's what I do. That's why I go Harbor Freight.
Right. So what do you use for the cleanup of your equipment once you're done?
I've been I've kind of settled on denatured alcohol at this point.
Okay.
I was using some acetone and mech and things like that. And it was brought to my attention the residue that gets left behind with acetone and mech.
Yeah.
and that was problematic. And so I switched over to the to natured alcohol,
Okay.
and
Nice.
it's been better. But
Well,
yeah,
that's not anything crazy. It's readily available. So again, we're staying in
yeah.
that realm of this is a really easy coating to use. It sounds like.
Yep. I would still throw it away. Way cheaper than Cerakoting. I mean, just done. Do 2 or 3, like gone.
Yep, $20. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a rounding error, right? When you're talking about comparing this to having doing
Even
this yourself,
better,
having
you buy
Cerakote, yeah.
you get the 2-year replacement plan on, take it back, and they'll give you a new one. Harbor Freight is awesome like that. Doesn't work. Okay, here's a new one. Perfect.
It doesn't work because my coating cured inside of it. But here we are.
Yeah. So you
They don't know
mentioned
that.
that you don't. You mentioned air curing. You mentioned you don't have to put it in an oven, but if you want to, you can. Do you get any kind of benefit? Does it like cure quicker or cure harder? Is there any benefit to putting it in an oven or in any kind of heat?
As it's been explained to me, you can actually wind up with a weaker product
Ooh.
by heat curing it.
Wow.
What was explained to me, and I hope I'm repeating this correctly, is that basically the off-gassing that occurs at ambient temperatures is very slow, very gradual.
Yeah.
When you heat things, the off-gassing occurs much more quickly. Additionally, drying in general occurs more quickly. So what happens is your coating dries and begins to cure from the outside in, and then you get a layer cured, and then the gases push out and break through the coating. So you wind up with these little micro fissures that you can't see, but they're still cracks nonetheless, right? They're microscopic cracks in the surface. So that's one of the reasons that this results in a better product, is because you're not cracking it as step one, right? Step one is spray, step two is put in the oven and crack it. Like, don't do that. So that's why you wouldn't want to do it. I am aware of one person who has had great results, and what their process is that they do. I believe what he said he was doing was putting it in a cold oven, turning it up, letting it sit for a certain period of time, right? So it heated real gradual. So the off gassing begins at a low temperature and all that, and only let it be in there for I think 15-20 minutes or something. And in his experience, as he was telling me this, he's had great results. So I can't question that. Um, but in my experience, not putting in the oven, I feel like I waited about the same amount of time, and it was good to go for the next coat. So I
You
don't know.
could accelerate that a little bit by just using a heated fan and dry air and push that across the coated stuff. It'll cure out naturally. It won't have the skinning over like he's talking about by putting it in a hot oven. So you could speed up, like I said, we say 30 to 60 minutes, but you could get closer to the 30, just by blowing hot dry air over it faster.
Yeah, but that's I'm not going to take away from that. I don't disagree with that. But in my experience, what I have done is I'll spray a receiver set and a handguard, and I'll set that aside. That's a column one. Then I'll do
Right.
another one. Then I'll do another one. Then I'll clean out my gun. And by the time I do that, that first set it's been sitting for 30 minutes.
Right.
So
Good
then
to
at
go.
that point, I wipe with the primer and do that one, and then the next one, and the next one,
Yeah.
and then I clean out my gun and do what I need to do. And by that time, 30 minutes have elapsed. It's dry to touch, and I can do it. So I figure, yeah, I can speed up the process, but am I fast enough to leverage that
Right.
expedited process? And if I'm
Speed
not,
it up, but you're
why
still
am I
cleaning
taking
up
the
the gun.
risk? Right, right. So then it's waiting on me. So.
Gotcha.
Give it the old prime rib treatment. 30 in, 30 out.
Yeah,
That's what I've seen with the guys I've seen Cerakote. I've had a few different ones done and been there and filmed and stuff while they were doing it. And they would spray a coat, put it in the oven, and then by the time they got their thing cleaned, and then the next coat of paint, the color mixed and in there, it was ready to come out the oven and spray again. So yeah, it's a time management thing is what
Yep.
it is. Once you get that rhythm down, sounds like it wouldn't be a problem. And that's if you wanted to go multicolor, right? Because you were saying one coat and you're done anyway. If you're just single color,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
I like the fact you can do it yourself. Big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Screw those circuits.
Yeah, this is interesting. So Marcus, you teased us with some other products coming for boats and ATVs and stuff. Are
Yeah.
you going to give us any more detail there?
Yeah, I'm been working hard on this and have some important calls coming up tomorrow and next week. But we've got boat coatings, and there'll be also one for ATVs. But the boat coatings, we have things for the exterior hull, below and above the water line is probably going to be the biggest thing around. And then there's all kinds of coatings that can go on the deck, things for the prop. We get things that can control heat on the exhaust system for inboards, and even for heat exchangers to wick heat out of things. And then we've just the non-slip coatings and stuff even for like leather and vinyl. I mean, it's like a complete set. But the thing that is going to be the most impressive is the bottom coats.
Yeah.
And if you live by the ocean, especially if you put a boat in the water and you let it sit, you'll get things that attach to it. Doesn't matter if it's a gel coat or whatever, or any of those bottom coats that use copper
coating.
Yeah, they're just So what this does, there's two versions. One's a color coat. So if you wanted to change a color on that, that's going to go on a little bit thicker, about 5 mils dry. And then we get a clear coat. So if everything looks good, is in good shape, you just put the clear coat on. That goes on about 1 mil. Same coating for a below and above the water line. There's two components to it that are really important. One is it's super slick, like very kind of aerodynamic, or what they call water dynamic, and just there's no friction on there. It's how slick it is. So things that want to biologically attach to it, starting with bacteria, breaking up to algae and mollusks and all the nasty things that yep. So they can't physically attach to it. It's too slick. And we have a thing called biodestroyer. It's a component that is built into the coating that does not allow anything to attach to it in a different way. It's not a chemical, so it's not a poison, and so it's FDA, EPA, all the clearances and stuff like that. But what it does, it physically eviscerates anything that wants to land on it. It would be like if I were a germ or a bacteria or something, and I wanted to land onto it, it would be like I'm jumping on a bed of knives. So,
I was going to say, will it increase the boat's speed as well because it's super slick and nothing can get on there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's you're reducing the friction, and so the handling, performance, and all that. And then a lot of coatings last for this. I guess depends on the situation, but a lot of things have to be reapplied every year or every couple of years. This should last for 6, 8, maybe even 10 years.
Jeez.
Nice. So your cost of use is way down, and then you don't have to do the maintenance and the cleaning because everything that tries to attach can't.
Yeah, I mean, you get the big boats. You got to pull them out of the water to apply. Like they don't have trailers. I had a boat that stayed in the water for a decade because it was too big for a trailer. We had to take it to a different marina and drive it under this big crane with 2 slings to lift it up out of the water. So we didn't. We just left it in the water for a decade.
We have the guys down here. They go down and they bottom clean everything with the little scrubby mitts and everything. It's big business down here as far as that goes.
Well, right. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of effort, and anytime you're doing that kind of stuff, whether you're pulling a boat out of the water or you're doing a physical scrape and clean, I mean, you can do more damage than you're preventing when you're doing that stuff.
Every time they clean it, like you could see the color of the bottom coat come off just a hair.
Yeah.
And so after 15, 16 times, you got to pull it out and bottom paint the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the big boats, I don't know how big your boat was, but I know tomorrow we're going to be talking about a 60-foot boat that's got about 2 inches thick of barnacles on it.
Oh my goodness.
So they're like really excited, like, oh, this is going to work. We're like all into it. So
Yeah.
it'll work. So
yeah, I'm interested to see where that product goes. I'm working on some little race boats right now.
It should help.
Like little racing catamaran type boats. So
yep, yeah, it can be used on like the sailboats and things like that to give people a little bit of an edge, you know.
Yeah, no problem with fiberglass versus anything else, right?
Nope, can go, especially with the super primer, the same one for the guns. You can put right on over anything, even with silicone on it. It'll bond right onto that stuff, and that's a big problem. So
that's crazy.
Yep. So it's a kind of a easier application than a lot of other things. You still got to do your surface prep, and if the boat's messed up, you got to fix it. But you can go right over to gel coat or painting, as long as there's paint on there. If it's good adhesion, then you can go over that. And yeah, and then very highly UV resistant too. So people that have like wraps on there, they want to put that on and protect the wraps and make it look nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's, and then Jeff, we didn't talk about the TVT, but that goes in the boat.
You're right. We have not talked about that. So and I'll go ahead and I'll tell you my recent experience, because I know you and I talked, and I felt bad telling you this, but I was I was waiting to put it in. I had a couple bottles sitting waiting, like they came in right after I did oil changes, like 1,000 miles later. And I was like, dang it, I don't want to change them now. I want to wait until like at a fresh oil change, because I'm thrifty. You know, I want to get the most out of everything. I don't want to get, you know,
he's cheap. Let's not mince words. He's
cheap.
They all mean the same thing.
I'm fiscally efficient. Okay. So, but I gave in, and I took, I'm a scout leader. I took my Sea Scouts on a trip. We went up to the coast of Virginia for the Sea Scout Academy. It was 4 hours drive each way. And before that trip, I put about, it would have been about 7 ounces, I think, probably in, don't laugh at me. Yes, I have a military Humvee. Yes, I have a conversion van, but my daily driver is a Prius. And I put it in the internal combustion engine of the, I said, don't laugh, Marcus.
Dude, right now, that's flexing right now, dude.
I know it is. It is.
Miles a gallon.
Yep. You look at my house, we got 3 Priuses sitting out front. Everyone who drives by is like, oh my God, what are they, drug dealers? Where'd they get all the money to get those?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Saving money on gas.
That's right. So, but anyhow, I was averaging in this car, it's an older one, and I was averaging on a highway trip 42 miles a gallon. And that's what, I mean, it's pretty reliable. I've driven down to TJ's in Florida a couple times in that car, and every time it averages out 42 miles a gallon. We drove that 4-hour trip. I put it in right before we left, like 10 minutes before we left, poured it in. So it hadn't been run through the engine at all. Hit the reset on the miles per gallon on the computer. When we got there, 4 hours of driving later, it said 46.8 miles per gallon. And that was, you know, highway, mostly highway interstate driving. We did end up in non-interstate a little bit more, and it tends to do a little better there. And for the mix of driving, I probably would have expected about 43 as the average, and it was 46.8. So
everybody hates you right now, anyways.
Yeah. Hey, you got to flex when you can, right?
I know. Listen.
So
Prius.
Yeah. So that was pretty good, you know. When I put it in the van, the other story I'll give you is the very first time I used it, because I'll be honest, and I'm pretty sure I told Marcus this the first time we talked, and he offered to send some, and I was like, whatever. I'm not enthused about this product because it sounds too good to be true. You know, it's really not going to do anything for me. You see the infomercials for all the different engine treatments, and here we pour it in, and then we drain the oil out, and Like, okay, really?
Order
So
now, get a second bottle free.
right, right. So, but I was like, you know what? My conversion van at the time, um, the mileage wasn't great. It was getting some kind of shaking to it. I thought, you know what? This van's on its last legs anyway. What's it going to hurt? I put it in, and I went to pick one of the kids up at school, and I pulled up to a stoplight, and I was like, son of a bitch, the engine just died. And I went and turned the key, and it was like, what was the Robin Williams movie, Good Morning Vietnam? You know
Yep.
how Private Garlic would always try to start the Jeep when it was already running? It was
Yep.
running.
Shing.
And instead of that normal vibration that the
You
engine
had to buy a
got,
starter, right?
it settled the engine down so it was perfect. It was so smooth that I didn't think it was running. I did that and was like, what's going on? I did it again because I still didn't believe the engine was still running. And I don't, I never thought I would tell a story like this because I have been so cynical and so skeptical about this kind of product. In that van, I'd have to go look at the article. I think I got like 1.75 miles per gallon increase on that. I put some in one of my Humvees. I think it was the first one. And I got, I want to say it was about 2 miles per gallon increase on that. Which in Humvee, that means I went from like 9.5 to 11.5 miles
That's
per
crazy
gallon.
talk.
I just put it in the latest Humvee, in the 6.5 turbo Humvee. And unfortunately, I didn't have a baseline for that. But I had a 2-hour round trip drive to a car show last weekend. I was like, dang it. I wanted to wait till I changed the oil in this, but diesel's getting so expensive. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in, save me some money on this trip. And unfortunately, I'm not able to give an accurate, did I get a fuel economy increase or anything? I mean, it settled down, didn't shake as much. I mean, it's a diesel. It still shook a little bit, but it ran great. I didn't have data up front to be able to give anything other than an anecdotal response on that one. And that's because I got impatient. That's one of the things I needed to do before I put it in, was gather that fuel economy data so I'd be able to give a good comparison. But I got impatient and I poured it in anyway. So,
Yep. It's a rookie move. It's all right.
I know.
It happens to the best of us.
Well, I'm new at this, man. Oh, you know what else I put it in? I put it in my lawnmower, in the little garden tractor. Because it was getting a little shaky. I put it in there and it smoothed it out. So
Maybe try putting it on your salad, Jeff, and see if that helps with your shakiness.
I drank some. No, I didn't. That'd be crazy.
Awesome. That would be fantastic right there.
Oh, no.
My experience was similar, Jeff. And I'll tell you, the video I've got up with that, which it was just putting it in, basically talking about what Marcus had said, the infomercial spiel, that Marcus gives with that, which, I mean, it's all true, unlike an infomercial, but basically gave that. And I mean, I get comment after comment with people that are just, oh, this is all BS, and where's your proof and all this. And I'm like, well, unless you want to come over to my house and borrow my truck, and I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, that's an option?
Well, I mean, possibly, but so I was pushing about 250,000 on my truck. Now, it's the 4.6 Ford F-150. It's the 4.6, not the 5.4. So the smaller V8, but the more reliable, less problem prone V8, thankfully. And I got I'd say I got about 20, maybe 22, somewhere in there around it. Fairly high geared. Wow. The thing doesn't have power for nothing in the world anyway. It never has. It's just not designed for that. And so anyway, put that in there. And I noticed several things. Put that in there prior to 250K. Shortly after putting it in there, it was the oil change getting ready to go actually from here to Tulsa for the big show up there, which is a 5-6 hour drive, something like that. so gauged everything, and I mean, I'm pulling a couple like you were talking about. I think in the van, a couple of miles a gallon more easily. I mean, from 20, maybe 22 to the 24, 25 range now out of it. But I noticed a couple of other things besides that. The first is Fords are notoriously prone for some top end rattle, especially if they sit for very long. Crank, and it don't last long. It just lasts a few seconds, right? I noticed that's gone. That's like there's no top end rattle when you crank now. It doesn't. And then the second thing that I've noticed with using it, and right now it's only got like 280 on it. I just don't drive it that much. But I've noticed that after the first change, right, that first oil change, after putting it in, that oil was horrible looking. And I had a little concern. I was like, okay, this is like Jed Clampett coming out of the ground looking stuff here. This is not, what the heck? And then I got to thinking, I thought, I wonder how much stuff is broke loose and is, mixed in with the oil now and everything else, right? So changed it, put the TBT back in. The next oil change, I noticed that it was probably clearer than and cleaner than it was back when it had 20, 30,000 miles. I got it at like, I don't know, 12,000 miles, but you know what I'm saying? When I first got the truck, the oil's just as clean, and the couple of oil changes, I think maybe since then, one or two more, it's even cleaner. So, it's not just an instance, a thing of gas mileage, but it's, Marcus can talk about it much better than any of us, obviously, but there's something going on the molecular level that makes everything where everything runs cleaner, apparently.
Yeah, I like
check engine light go off.
Well, I like hearing you guys talk about it because you're third party. I'm interested in it, but it's it's bias coming from me. But I always try to tell the truth with everything. I don't like to under or oversell anything. Just trying to be accurate and honest with stuff. And everything. I remember, Jeff, when you did tell me that you thought that the engine wasn't running at the stop sign or stoplight or something, and you're like, "Do I hit it?" And what's going to happen? And he said, hey, it was in there and still running. So it's taken, the simple thing is, just like if you like the accuracy oil, it's a similar molecule package. So, right, you're cleaning out all the crud in there. So like what you saw in like dirty oil, like extra dirty, that stuff was already in there. We're just cleaning it out. I had a company called Patriot Clean Fuel tested on these very expensive 350, 450 work trucks that they used. And they called me up and they said, oh my gosh, it just made everything filthy. I said, no. I said, that stuff is already in there and just cleaning it out. And so next time what you experienced is gone. So eventually it gets it nice and clean. And that happens because the molecules have a stronger bond than the stuff that is already stuck onto it. So that's how they're just going to bond on. So do the same, do it like corrosion and stuff too. Right. The same thing, it'll clean that up because it's stronger than the oxidizers. But it's cut into friction. Most of the bonding happens in like 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And then you're cutting friction by 90%. And that's why it's going to quiet it out. And as it works its way through, it might take like a whole hour to get through everything. But then you're good. And the safety feature in there, and too bad Dirk's not on here still. It happened to him. He told me what happened. But what it is, the metal, why you don't hear the noise too in those cars is because the friction reduction is in the metal. So it's not just, it goes through the oil, but as the oil gets on the metal, those molecules bond onto it, right? So if the oil's not there, like in a cold startup, it's still lubricated right. in an extreme way. So what happens is we have, like if you lose your oil, what I tell people, if you hit a rock or a pothole and you lost all your oil, pretty soon you're going to seize up. But if you have our stuff in there, you'll be able to run that car. We can't warranty it, but reality is you can probably run that car or truck for maybe a couple 100 miles with no oil in there. And I've had people do that and even push it intentionally. And there's a lot of stories with that, but kind of a cool thing that we had a company that wanted to use our stuff in gearboxes, and it's a big company, and they make stuff for Caterpillar and John Deere and all these companies around the world. They said, "Hey, we want to test it in the gearboxes," and they told me how they're gonna test it. And I said, "I don't do that." I said, "Be extreme. I go make it, really see what it can do." And I said to put it in one, not in the other, run it for an hour, and then drain the oil out, and then run them until they fail. So the one that was not treated lasted 20 minutes, and I think that was actually pretty good. It's not as, and the engine would seize up quicker, but the one with our stuff in there, the TVT green engine additive, it lasted, they said it ran 30, 40 degrees colder and lasted for over 2.5 hours before it started to have any issues. So it's just a safety factor, if you're driving somewhere and, you happen to hit something, losing oil, it's just going to, help protect your engine in that way as well.
Awesome. I'm putting it in the diesel.
You can also put it in the rear differential is a really good spot. You put it in the transfer case, front differential. If you had a manual transmission, you could put it in there, not automatic, because you need friction in that. And you can put a little bit in the fuel, gas or diesel, as long as the diesel doesn't have a DPF system on it, because it might coat the sensors on it. But if you don't have a DPF system, you can put it in the fuel.
Awesome. I was going to ask that because I've got the old like a 99 7.6 turbo diesel, and I was like, hey, we throw some in the diesel, it might help out a little bit.
Yeah. It's a lot of people always try it. They like it and they go, well, what if I put it in here? What if I put it there? What if I do this? And, almost always, as long as it's metal on metal friction, right? You can use it in a lot of different applications. So yeah, that's my infomercial is it's actually does what it says it does, because it's really phenomenal chemistry. So if you like the gun stuff, you like the engine stuff, for boats, generators, ATVs.
Ooh, generator. There's an idea. We may have to talk about a bulk shipment. I got so many things I need to try this in.
Yeah, I agree on the generator. I never thought about that, but yeah.
Charlie and I were down at a thing called the Big East media thing a few years ago, and it's back in outside of Daytona, and they had it's like way in the woods, so they get everything is powered there through a generator. We had to take Charlie's big 4-wheel drive truck to get back there because it was rainy and stuff. But anyhow, they had a generator, and the guy was talking or heard me talking to somebody else. So I was asking questions, and he came up to me that he did the maintenance out there, and he said, "Hey, we're having trouble with the generator. Can I have someone have to put in?" I said, "Sure." So I gave it to him, told him what to do, and he came back like a half hour later, and he was just like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing. I think it just saved our generator. It's running smooth like it's new." So yeah, that's a good application, and some of those things are not efficient. So smoothing out the friction in there, protecting it could really get better, fuel economy out of those things too.
Yeah, interesting. Yep. Well, I keep thinking, like Clover was saying, I keep thinking of new ideas because I do a whole lot of different things. Like I got a friend that's got an ocean sailing yacht that last time I went out with him, we fired the boat up, and he's like, "Oh, there's a problem," and I had to go fix one of his engines before we could leave the dock. But I thought, they get out there in the middle of the ocean, they can't have breakdowns. That bad things happen when you're on your own out in the middle of the Atlantic, and things start breaking. So yeah, there's so many different markets that these friction reducer lubricants could make a difference in, I think.
Yeah, we've got some good testing going on, and actually I can't say who, but there's some pretty major companies that are doing long-term testing, and they're loving it so far. And we've had some really good testing and more testing going on in boats, because you got, no oil and a wave, and then you get oil, and then you get, no oil. So you're having issues. So we think like you're just saying, if you're in the on the land driving a car or a truck, that's one thing. There's people going to help you, probably, hopefully. But then if you're in the water, yeah, that could be an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get yourself in a bad position on the water if you have a problem.
Yeah. Well, especially down here, like Chris and them, they run out, 70, 80 miles to go fishing. It's a
Where are
That's
you, TJ, where are
crazy.
you at? Where are you located?
I'm in Satellite Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's not bad.
Nice. You do some nice fishing, you got to go a little bit deeper.
You got to go out there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully our name eventually is going to be big in the boat industry and the coatings, and I think the TVT is really, again, have a lot of applications in there for protecting the engines and getting even better fuel efficiency. Because I don't know how much is boat fuel cost now.
Oh, it's pricey.
Yeah,
It's
they just say,
diesel price high.
give us all the money.
Yeah, it's pushing
So
$6.
speaking of
$7 a gallon.
TVT, so I saw machining, like cutting TVT oil. I'm curious, Matthew, if you've used that with the different 80% machining you're doing.
I have not.
You haven't? Well, get on that, will you?
Come on.
I have not.
Anything you use a machine cutting oil on, yeah, that's something you'd want to do because you're just the efficiencies and better cuts, and it'll just save a ton of money and time. Plus, if something breaks, like we get a lot of gunsmiths that really love it, because if something breaks like a small bit, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So if you can help prevent that, then it's going to make life a lot easier and quicker too.
Yep. Okay. We're at an hour and 36 minutes, so we're going to make the last call. So get your questions out there in the comments. Anyone who is following along with us live, and obviously, if you're in replay and you're still listening, still engaged in the program, God bless you. But don't be afraid to leave your questions. Leave a question. I'll either make up an answer, or I'll shoot Marcus a question, or I'll call Matthew and say, "Hey, man, make up an answer for me," or whatever. Oh, come on,
I'll
Clover.
do
Is
it.
this show ever
I'll
going to
do it.
end? I don't know. Eventually, it has to.
Just don't call Marcus because you'll be on the phone for 3 hours. Marcus loves to talk.
He does. He does. Anything else we wanted to talk
He
about
does.
from your end, Marcus? I mean, you've always got 26 different irons in the fire. It seems like.
I just love innovation, and I like bringing things that actually make a difference for people. And I don't like just having the same old stuff, right? I just don't want to market. It's got to be something that really makes a difference. I like green. I think the fact that our chemistry is safe to use, and that is important for a lot of people, especially if you're doing guns and you got kids and dogs, and you want to do stuff inside the house, where it doesn't smell, and you don't, in the wintertime, you get kicked out. You don't want to get kicked out. Your wife might not even know you're using our gun stuff. But I love innovation. The coatings are really exciting. I mean, I think our duty coat line is going to be really end up being the best stuff around. So people just got to learn about it and all that. And I do, maybe not the right time, but I got some really cool stuff for the agricultural community. People growing things, get some really neat stuff, kind of high-tech biological things, so we can make things grow better, faster, safer, longer, more fruit, blah, blah, blah. But that's all.
We might need them here shortly.
True. I think you always need things to improve the efficiency of making food. So question
food.
for you. I partially wanted to grab a guitar because it excites TJ whenever we talk about guitars on this show. But as you were talking, it got me thinking, do you have like a precision applicator bottle for something like the accuracy oil? And I'll tell you why I'm asking is I need something to help me be more accurate when I'm playing notes. But more important than that, the friction point on a guitar is where the strings go through this little breakover where they're coming straight, and then there's an angle and it comes down, and it comes through a little piece. In this case, it's some sort of plastic. On this one, it's a bone, like a little piece of probably cattle bone, and it has little slots cut in it for each string to sit in it. They call it the nut, and the nut is a friction point. So as you're playing, the string needs to be able to move a little bit, and if it gets bound up, it'll throw the guitar out of tune. So people will put lubricant in those slots. I'm afraid if I tried to drop a little bit on here with this, it'd make a mess and get everything.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you two interesting things. One, I would not put that on there because it might eat up your finish on it. Those will look like nice guitars. Yeah. And I'm not a musician, but I love music. So I wouldn't do that. However, two things. One, I did have some guys that actually need to touch base with them. They were using the accuracy oil somewhere on the guitar for something, and they loved it, and they bought a lot of it. So there's something in there other than that I can't remember what it was, but they were using it somewhere on the guitar. And the product that I think you would like, Jeff, that would make TJ really happy is one of the coatings, like the Glide, like look under the archery. Yep. And I think you could put that on because you could hand wipe that, and you just need so little. And I think when you let that cure out, that'll give you the less friction and make it stay nice and clean for a long time.
Yeah, because there's two spots. There's the top of the bottom, and you can see the break angle where the strings come over here. And there's a little knife edge that they sit on there, which is not unlike at the top where you see the break angle here. So both of those are friction points. Both of those are places that you could put some sort of lubricant.
Yep, so, I think our coating lube version would be the one for that, because I wouldn't want to mess up the finish on your stuff, and that accuracy oil could do that.
Yeah, God forbid we mess up the finish on the guitar.
They look like they're expensive, but they look nice.
So, well, some of them are. And when you were talking about the finish, I was actually kicking around, I need to paint this one pretty soon because it looks terrible. I want to paint it to match my Humvee, but anyhow.
So Matt, can you use Monster Tough on his guitar?
Do it.
Yeah, talking about.
That could be neat. Yeah, we'd get some desert tan and put on there. That would be awesome.
So if you do that, will you write and play a song featuring the Duty Coat line and Spartan products?
Absolutely not.
Oh man!
And no, here's why. Clover kind of hit the nail on the head here.
There's a reason.
If I were skilled enough to do it justice, I would do it. But I feel like if I did it, you'd be excited, and then you'd hear it and you'd be like, "You bastard! Why? What did we do to deserve this?" Yeah. I'm getting better. I really am, but I'm not.
I would hope so.
Well, maybe you could be the test pilot, introduce those things once they work into the music industry, and you can be the go-to guy in the music industry, and then you can get some really cool country singers and rock stars to perform a song.
That could be interesting. I'm really more interested in the groupies, but we could do that other stuff too.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. You got to have priorities in life.
Exactly. The only reason you don't play guitar.
Right. Yeah. So if you ever wanted proof that I have 100% confidence that my wife never listens to this show, that conversation was it. Yeah. Never happened.
Except for tonight.
Yeah. Back in my younger life, I used to wrestle professionally, and we, believe it or not, had groupies, if you want to call them that, and they're actually called arena rats. Not a good thing, but it's not as much fun as you would think. They can cause a lot of problems for people. A lot of wrestlers.
Oh, no doubt.
they have to get married because they get them pregnant and stuff. So yeah, stay away from the groupies. Just be the scout leader that you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I sometimes forget that I shouldn't mention those two disparate types of ideas on the same program. That's
Plus, I don't want your wife to get mad and beat you up or something like that.
I'll take some
Yeah.
groupies. It's fine.
yeah, yeah. And TJ says that because you may have noticed earlier in the program where here we go. Hello, guys.
That's all we get.
From
That's the best we get
TJ's
out of her.
better half.
She checked in and checked right out again.
Oh goodness.
I like the effort. I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Well, if you'll give her a good game for me, I'd appreciate that.
I will. Don't worry.
And, so I think with that, any final comments from any of the panelists before we shut things down?
Modern Spartan systems, buy it. You'll love it. You won't regret it. Good stuff. High tech. There you go.
I will find out. I have no idea. I've never used any of it so far.
Slacker.
No.
You're a slacker.
I
Slacker.
know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, check it out. It's good stuff. And Jeff, you should definitely do decode that guitar. One of my motorcycles got wrecked, and John from Bad Moon Armory duty coded one of the panels on it, and
Wow.
looks great.
I like how you referenced got wrecked as if kind of in the third person, as if you had nothing to do with it.
I had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it.
It's
I was
fell
not
over
present.
in the parking lot, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I wasn't even present when it happened.
Oh,
See?
that's even worse.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that gives us some ideas, some other things to look forward to. And TJ, if you ever come up here to do any of those jobs that we've talked about, I have got a cleaning kit right
Awesome.
here waiting for you.
I'll come get it.
Yeah, there you go.
Test it as hard as you can, any way you want. And the longer and harder you test it, the more you'll like it. That's just how it works. So, yeah, that's the Spartan challenge.
Oh,
I like it.
there we go. All right. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and offer that challenge to everyone out there. If you feel like doing the challenge, come back and leave a comment here. And was there anything else we were going to do for people, Marcus?
Remember, if you take the challenge and you don't like it, Jeff will give you your money back. Just saying.
You're generous, Jeff. But it's a safe bet.
I think this comment pretty accurately reflects that.
Yeah, it is. Yep. He knows.
Yep. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and shut it down. So the way we do this, the way we end this program, just for the education of Marcus and Matthew here, this is optional. Okay, you're not required to participate because
you can't see Marcus do it anyways.
Because someone, who was it? It was Travis from Maxim Defense, wasn't it?
Maxim. Yep.
Our sponsor for this program is Maxim Defense. Thank you so much, Maxim Defense, for supporting us and allowing us to go out and talk to all kind of cool brands. And we told Travis, here's what we do. We say we'll see at the range, and we point at the camera, and we hold that while I try to find the end stream button and click it, and then click the follow-up end stream button, which sometimes I miss because, I'm not that coordinated. It may be a few seconds, but we hold that. We stare at the camera.
Should we hum?
And he said, oh, I'm not doing that. I was like, wait, what? But whatever, So I'll be honest with you. You do you. Do whatever makes you happy. We're going to enjoy it, whatever you do. So
yeah, exactly.
With that, yeah, I'm pointing. I promise.
No, he's not.
That didn't count for Mark.
I'm pointing too. You just can't see me.
All right.
So with that, we'll see you at the range.